Meteorologist Mike Seidel has been there since the storm began. He is live in Ponce, Puerto Rico on the South Shore with an update on the conditions. And Mike, even though the core of the storm is well past you, we are still dealing with those rain bands that are only making that flooding worse.
Indeed, a big change today is the wind. Yesterday, we got rocked with a 103-mile-an-hour wind gust. That's the highest wind gust reported so far with Fiona. This morning, the winds are much lighter. We did have a squall recently that brought more heavy rain. This morning, we had lightning and thunder, and I suspect the gusts were somewhere between 30 and 40 miles an hour. But yes, it's all about the rain right now. Just about the entire island continues under various flash flood warnings. In fact, the one here has now been extended into 2:30 this afternoon. So that's, I think, 4 or 5 consecutive flash flood warnings. They keep extending them because it keeps raining, and we've had incredible, devastating flooding, mudslides across the island. When you think about it, rainfall totals, some places more than they had from Hurricane Maria. That was a Cat 4 that hit here 5 years ago this week. 20 to 25 inches of rain, and some areas could still see more. Let me show you the radar, the forecast radar as we go through this afternoon and this evening. There goes the core of Fiona. It made a second landfall on the coast of the Dominican Republic, the East Coast, just earlier this morning. Now it's pulling away to the northwest. It'll turn north. We do have warnings up for the Turks and Caicos. Hopefully your friends there and the folks that live there get through this okay. Meanwhile, back here, we're going to have to worry about these bands of rain, and the forecast shows how that rain continues to come up from the south. But by this evening, most of that should be over with, just a few scattered showers. But because of that, right now, the Weather Service, last check, has that flood watch up until 6 p.m. We'll see if they need to extend that a little bit. As far as power goes, effectively, most of the island is still without power. The power company here, Idlum, says they have restored some of the circuits, but no word on just how many customers have been restored. But basically, most everyone still doesn't have power. Got to get the winds down so they can get up in the bucket trucks. And also, there's some areas they can't get to because of the mudslide and flash flood situation, which continues. Here in Ponce, driving from here to the hotel, we saw a lot of, damage with palm fronds down, trees uprooted, a lot of scattered debris. We didn't see any significant damage. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we did have some damage here. You can see here some of the roof is off this shed or off this building here at the harbor. The water, though, has come back and has gone out back into where it should be in the harbor. Yesterday it was all the way up here when we had the surge. That has not caused any impacts here as far as I know. Just putting some areas underwater, but they're okay, like over here where they eat their lunch and dinner while they're waiting to get out on their boats. All that water is now backed off. So what we watch for today is more rainfall. Totals could be another 4 to 6 inches in some of those areas that you get band after band. Right now, light rain. We're in a bit of a break, but as we show you on the radar, Molly, still more to come out of the Caribbean, right over the island of Puerto Rico. And they're saying they expect the power back on in several days. But I think that's incredibly optimistic after going through Maria and the fact that the entire island basically is without power this morning.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Now, I want to take you to Mike Seidel, who's live in Ponce, Puerto Rico. And Mike, those rainfall totals in your area, very significant over the last 24 hours.
Over 27 inches, Molly, at Rio Cerrillos, not far from here in the Ponce area. In fact, we're going to take a look at that area sometime this afternoon. We may be back there live this evening from 5 to 8 Eastern on the Weather Channel. Meanwhile, back here at the docks and the yacht club, 103-mile-an-hour wind gusts yesterday. We were right here. I want to show you what it looked like as those winds were just blasting through here. 3 to 4 hours of just roaring wind and debris flying around. Look at the wind and the rain. Basically where I'm standing, and that's when we had the highest gust, and the power went out, as Molly mentioned, island-wide. This morning we're hearing from Luma, and they're saying they've got about 100,000 customers back on. They've turned some of the circuits back on. 100,000 customers, that's about 7% of the island, so long way to go. They're saying several days. We'll see how that goes, because with Maria, it was a much, much longer window. Of course, Maria had much stronger winds. As far as the rainfall goes, it's still dripping and dropping here. We had another squall just about an hour ago. We gusted 40 miles an hour, some very heavy rainfall. That's moved on. But you can see on the radar, there's still a lot of rain coming up from the Caribbean from the south. but it's fragmented and it's not solid. But the problem is the ground is so saturated. Flash flooding is ongoing. Most of the island is under flash flood warnings. This additional rainfall, whether it's light or heavy, is not good for the overall flooding situation. Flood watch, by the way, I just checked. Weather Service up in San Juan has kept it till 6 p.m. at this point. The flash flood warnings keep extending and extending as the rain keeps falling and falling. One big change today, we don't have those winds. Molly and Alex, just gusting at times, only in the squalls, 30 to 40 right now. We've got a nice breeze, about 15 to 20 miles an hour. Temperature is very comfortable for September right now, in the mid-70s. So it's not oppressively hot and steamy like I've dealt with, like with Katrina, Alex. The next day on the Mississippi coast, it was just unbearable. Just hot and humid, and everything started, just started rotting. So much better situation here versus something like that.
Yeah, you said it, Mike. Thanks so much for that. And of course, with a lot of folks without power.
Our meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Ponce on the south side of Puerto Rico. And Mike, I know the rain has just been terrible and torrential there. What are conditions like right now?
I can tell you about an hour ago, we got hit pretty hard again. That cell has now moved inland. They've got a storm warning up for that in the interior. Dr. Knapp talked about that. But here in Ponce, nearby Rio Gallitos has picked up now 31.66 inches of rain. 31 and 2/3 inches of rain. They picked up another 2/3 from that. Then we had all the wind yesterday, the hurricane force winds. And this is one of the byproducts when you have winds that gust to 100 miles an hour, like we had here in Ponce. This huge hardwood came down, blocked the roadway. They've cut it up and opened up at least the lanes on the other side so people can get to and from here in the downtown Ponce area. Let me show you what it looked like this afternoon. About 40-minute drive, we went over to Seidel. All kinds of issues, and even today, this afternoon, look at all the water on the roadways and around the businesses. A lot of streets, a lot of neighborhoods still underwater. So it's still not over with, and you get more rain on top of this. It slows down the water from receding from those areas, but there were a lot of roads that were covered with water. Many drivers decided to drive through them. Not a great idea, although I can tell you the flow, there wasn't a flow. It was just kind of standing water in most areas. Back here in Ponce, well, it's dry for now. Look at the radar. There's still some showers and storms off the coast. We're not completely done with the rainfall, but boy, the bulk of it has fallen, and the winds right now are almost dead calm. We had that squall about an hour ago, and they were gusting over 40 miles an hour. So things change very quickly with these squalls. Once you get past the brunt of the hurricane, things quiet down. The next squall comes in, and then you get the wind and the rain. One thing I can tell you, there's a lot of standing water around here. This is the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. And Jackie, they're live, they're big, and they're hungry tonight. So we've got the bug spray handy. It's they're ready to carry us away here in Ponce.
Yeah, one of the many consequences of all of that water. Meteorologist Mike Seidel reporting live for us in Puerto Rico. Our meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Ponce on the south side of Puerto Rico. And Mike, I know you've still been getting some squalls there today.
Yes, and I want to show you the one we just got about an hour and a half ago. This is about 3:30, 4 o'clock at the hotel as we were prepping to leave to come here. And look at the wind and rain. We thought, well, we knew it wasn't over with, but, you get a nice break from the rain. In fact, we actually had a little peak of sunshine briefly this afternoon, and it just came roaring in off the Caribbean. And what happens? It just rains and blows hard. It wasn't as windy as yesterday by any means. These gusts were about 40 to 45 miles an hour. And Rio to Rios, which is about 4 miles to our north, back towards the foot of the mountains, picked up about another inch of rain. And now they're up close to 32 inches of rain. 32 inches of rain from Hurricane Fiona. A lot of rainfall, a lot of flash flooding continuing where you get additional rain. We were over in Salinas earlier, and there's still a lot of roads underwater and still water flowing over the roads. It's going to take probably about another day for it to all drain off once the rain finally moves out. And after this evening, we're going to be in much, much better shape. You notice the area now. Look at the trees. Hardly a whiff of wind right now. in just a couple of hours ago. So that's what's going to happen now. We've lost the wind from the hurricane. If we get any wind from this point on, it's going to be from these squalls, but they're going to be few and far between as we get through later tonight and tomorrow. As far as the power goes, you can see this big tree down. Didn't see a lot of tree damage or a lot of trees down, uprooted here in Ponce, despite the winds that we had at our location at the yacht club of 103 miles an hour. I was kind of surprised by that, but happy about that because that takes down the power lines. It didn't matter. The whole country was in a blackout yesterday. Better news right now because we've got 10% of the customers back on, according to Luma. That's the power company here. 10% of the customers is 150,000 customers. So we still have a long, long way to go. Hopefully they'll get it back on. Now that the winds are dying off and the water's receding, they can get to these locations, and certainly in these areas, they can get the bucket trucks back up. So, Jackie, things are looking up slowly but surely. We're just keeping our fingers crossed that they can get the power back on faster, much faster they did with Maria 5 years ago. But that was a whole different animal. That was a Cat 4. The winds were much, much stronger. They didn't have nearly, in fact, here they had about half as much as the rainfall that we had from Fiona so far. Had to think about that.
I know what you meant. Thanks, Mike. You know, the one thing about the power, though, our meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Ponce on the south side of Puerto Rico, and he has this report.
The weather hasn't been this calm here in Ponce, Puerto Rico in about 36 hours. We took a direct hit from Fiona, 103-mile-an-hour wind gust, and so far now, nearly 32 inches of rain. But we did have a squall late this afternoon, around 4 p.m. Take a look at the wind and the rain just roaring around the hotel. Now, these winds were gusting to 40 or 45 miles an hour, not up to 90 or 100 miles an hour. So the winds have decreased, but the rainfall added up another inch, adding to the already incredible total. The other issue is the power. The power is still out to 90% of the island. About 150,000 customers are on. And as evidence, this tree taking down power lines, they've cleaned part of it up. I noticed today driving around Ponce, there weren't a lot of trees down. That's a good thing, but still a lot of power out. The other thing we noticed is still all the flooding and the running water. In fact, the flood watch has been extended until Tuesday evening because of the runoff and any additional rainfall. But this is nearby Salinas. It's about 45 miles east of here. From the drone, and look at all the real estate that's underwater, and it's still like that in many subdivisions. In fact, we tried to get in there down towards the marina, and it was just too dangerous. So many areas on the roadways covered with water, flowing water, and more than 2 feet deep in some places. But the rainfall is backing off. It'll be a much drier day tomorrow, and also better news at the airport. Right now, up there on the big board, no flights to and from the U.S. have been canceled. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, the Weather Channel in Ponce, Puerto Rico.